Hello, U.S. History. Welcome back to another Varela's videos. Today we're looking at the U.S. entry into World War I. And I know that you learned about World War I in world history last year. So our focus this year is a little bit more on what is specifically happening with the U.S. So we'll do a quick recap as to what's been happening. So U.S. entry into World War I. So the British is going to go on the offensive with Germany and do a blockade. And if you don't remember what a blockade is, it's basically like taking your naval ships and parking them outside. I guess you could park or anchor your ships just out off of Germany's coast. And originally, they're just going to blockade what's called contraband. Now, contraband technically would be any kind of weapons or supplies that are used to fight your war. So they're trying to blockade war supplies, but eventually that blockade is going to start to expand and include basically everything. So because Germany has such a powerful um, uh, army, the British feel like this might be their best way to hurt Germany, is to kind of cut them off from supplies, at least on the coasts. So you can see this map right here kind of shows where they're trying to kind of limit supplies from coming in on this side of the German Empire. It is effective, but again, if you don't remember from last year, Germany's army is kind of mowing everybody down in World War I. So and actually, the same thing will happen in World War II when we get there. So this is Britain's attempt early on in the war to try and kind of fight the British, to fight the Germans, at least with a naval blockade. The other weapon the Germans have are their U-boats or their submarines. So that term might be on your test. So to try and kind of get back at the British, the Germans try their own blockade, and they try and use their submarines and some of their naval ships to prevent supplies from coming to the British. It's not going to be as effective because the British Navy really was the superior navy. The Germans don't just simply have enough, but again, they do have these U-boats, these submarines, and this is a big weapon for the Germans. The British have tried to make submarines, and they might have at this point successfully created a few, but it's the Germans who really mastered that technology first. So if you see a question about U-boats on your test in Germany, it's one of their advantages. And because they have these submarines, they can attack ships without ships even knowing it. And that's where the story of the Lusitania comes in. So May 7th, 1915, a German U-boat is going to sink the British passenger liner, the Lusitania. So basically, the Lusitania kind of looks like the Titanic. We're in that same time period. Now, let's be honest, the Lusitania was a ship like Titanic, but it was also carrying some war supplies, some of this contraband. But it did have civilians. It had British and U.S. Civilians on there. So when the ship was attacked, it did outrage both the British and the Americans. So World War I starts in 1914. And this is basically, 6 months and almost a year in. And the Americans are not in this war. So this is just one thing that happens that might bring the Americans in. And that is not what Germany wants right now. So they promise that they will not sink any other passenger ships. So think of it like a cruise ship. They won't attack those. And they make a promise that they will not attack these unarmed civilian ships. But as you know with Germany, you can't trust them. So here's a rendition of the Lusitania. There is not a photograph of the Lusitania being sunk, so this is just an artist sort of rendering of it. But you can see it's a huge ship. And with these U-boats, they attack again. And this time, the following year, they attack a French ship, the Sussex. And this is where we can't really trust Germany because they say they'll stop, but they don't. But this time, they make another promise. And this time, they call the promise the Sussex Pledge, which is, okay, we, Germany, will not attack any more submarines. Or, I'm sorry, we will not attack any other passenger civilian ships. And again, you have to remember, this is 1916. There is no radar. There is no sonar. So there's no way to really detect a submarine underwater. That's why the Titanic hit the iceberg. You have people who are lookouts to look above the water, but nobody is really looking below. So what's happening in the US? So if it's 1916, this is an election year. Woodrow Wilson is running for re-election. So he does understand that as America, we have to prepare for the possibility of an attack or war. So he will authorize the National Defense Act, which will make our army bigger. He will also authorize and sign the Naval Construction Act. So it does just what it sounds like. It'll build more warships. So we're making our army bigger. We're making our Navy bigger. However, Wilson's campaign slogan in 1916 literally is, "He kept us out of war." And you can see here on this campaign button, "War in Europe, peace in America. God bless Wilson." So when we're going back to these ideas of isolationism and imperialism, it kind of sounds like America wants to be an isolationist. And Wilson is kind of going with that. He does win re-election. It's pretty tight, but this sort of vote for the American people really comes down to, if you vote for Wilson, we stay out of World War I. If you vote for his opponent, which was a Republican named Charles Hughes, then you're going to go to war. So Wilson wins. It's kind of tight, but he does win. And Wilson's slogan, once he is reelected, is to continue to ask for Americans to stay neutral in their hearts as well as their minds. And this is really difficult because, as you know, we are a country of immigrants, and we have immigrants in our country from both the Allied powers, so that would be the British and the French. We also have immigrants in our country from the Central powers, the Germans, the Austrians, the Italians. So staying neutral isn't going to be realistic for very much longer. And again, this is 1916. So what happens next? We're going to get into this thing. And we get into it with the very famous story of the Zimmerman note, or Zimmerman telegram, depending on how you want to remember it. So as you know, a telegram is sent via Morse code / cables, but there was a message sent to Mexico from Germany. And in this telegram, it's basically Germany asking Mexico for help. They propose an alliance. And basically, if the U.S. declares war on Germany, Mexico should declare war on the U.S. And what Germany is hoping to do is to get Mexico to attack the United States and keep us busy over here so we do not go to Europe. And then when the war's over, Germany is always extra confident. They tell Mexico, "We will give you the land back that America stole from you. We will give you Texas. We will give you New Mexico. We will give you Arizona." So again, once Germany wins the war, this would happen. It won't really matter because this telegram is intercepted by the British, who of course are going to give it to the Americans. And when the United States hear that Germany is trying to make some kind of agreement with Mexico, combine that announcement with this. Germany is going to announce they're taking back the Sussex Pledge, and they will attack any boat in the Atlantic with their U-boats. We call this unrestricted submarine warfare. And the idea is that Germany will attack anything. And so because of the Zimmerman note, proposing an alliance with Mexico, because of the announcement of unrestricted submarine warfare, these two things happen within 6 months of each other. And that leaves Wilson no choice. So by April of 1917, President Wilson is going to ask Congress to declare war on Germany. And that is officially going to get the United States in the war. But mind you, this war has been going on since 1914. And it's 1917, and we're just announcing that we're in it. The whole thing is going to be done by November of 1918. So we are almost there. All right. The official declaration happens on April 6th, 1917. And that means we are now in this war. Okay, so we're going to stop right there for now. So this is the U.S. entering World War I. And again, it's going to be over pretty quick, but we're still going to definitely have a role in this fight. So hope you took some good notes, and I'll see you in class.